Hello, Eric Walczykowski, CEO of Bespoke Partners and host of Tailored Talent. Today, I'm joined by my partners, Jared Moriarty and Heather Kivett from our Industra team to talk about all things industrials. Welcome to the show, Jared and Heather.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things I want to unpack is what's going on in the industrials market. And I think one of the key themes that we're seeing is the modernization of the industrial organization. Talk to me a little bit about that, Jared.
Yeah, so I think we're seeing a lot of push and pull in the lower middle market right now, especially with businesses, a lot of times in their first private equity turn, especially, boards today are trying to strike, a careful balance between preserving what made the business successful historically, while also recognizing that many industrial companies need to evolve much faster. I think, the biggest areas are probably around visibility, efficiency, and labor productivity. So a lot of companies are investing heavily in better data, systems integration, automation, just because they want real-time visibility into operations. So that could be production performance, inventory maintenance, supply chain issues. Historically, a lot of industrial businesses have operated with these fragmented systems and a lot of manual processes, and leaders are realizing they can't scale effectively that way anymore.
Heather, how does that compare and contrast with what you're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, I think, of course, in private equity environment, it's all about the ROI during their hold time. So a lot of the robotics automation is something that takes years to implement. So I think a lot of that investment is just going to be the strategy on their exit and timeline and what they're looking to accomplish during that hold.
So look, Jared, with modernization of these industrial companies being a major theme, how are you seeing the talent pool and any constraints to actually bringing in executives who are qualified to make these transitions?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the most successful executives right now are the ones who can operate at this intersection of transformation, but also strategy and execution right now in the short term. Honestly, I think, you have to have the experience when you look at, you've been in an environment where you've modernized an industrial operation before, but I think there's a pretty strong emphasis today on leadership style with that. I think industrial organizations historically been very command and control, but today's leaders, they really need to build alignment, communicate effectively, bring teams along through transformation initiatives, because there's a war to keep talent at every level, whether you're in manufacturing, distribution, and services. So as you're coming in and driving change and modernizing things, you have to be able to bring everybody along and explain the why and galvanize the troops. So we try to dig a lot into that, and it's a specific person that can come in and do all of that while they're fulfilling the objectives in the timeline of the investment.
No, absolutely. Well, I think that's such a great point around the war to keep talent, and of course, there's levers around compensation, problem to solve, culture. Heather, how are you seeing firms effectively navigate that war to keep talent?
Yeah, I think it's all about the exit thesis too of what that portfolio is looking to accomplish, and that the business has got runway to be able to drive that value and finding the right leaders to do that. Compensation is of course a key factor in that, and private equity, especially these days with the longer holds, need to be creative in the way that they're compensating their leaders that they want to bring in.
No, absolutely. And so when you think about, look, it's not only retaining your talent, but we're finding these modern leaders who are adept, a little bit different than command and control. And so I also then have to actually put together a package to get them on the boat. Jared, what are you seeing with current packages and the competitive nature of attracting these executives?
Yeah. It always depends on the size of the business and what the timeline is. Are you coming in at the beginning of the hold or towards the end? Because we do have a number of mandates now where it's, we've got an asset that's been held for a while and we need to get this thing to exit in the next 12 to 18 months. So, I always try to remind clients, it's like, let's look at the big picture here. Obviously what package we bring in, an executive at, it has to make sense for the business, but increasingly, especially when you look at CFOs, also CEOs who have the right experience, really at every level, it's a tight market. So you are expecting people who are going to want a significant bump from where they're at. And then, you've got leaders who have gone into a private equity backed situation. Maybe they were sold on a certain exit timeline and, they realized how much debt was on the business or things exactly didn't play out as they thought. So I think, a lot of executives who are astute right now are being very diligent in their own process and trying to really understand what's the reality. So transparency is key, and just making sure that if you're bringing it to the bottom line, it's a little bit more in order to secure the right person.
No, absolutely. And this is where I come back to time and time again. If you're a PE firm, the executive search firm you pick to help find that talent is so important, because we win because we focus on PE all day, every day. And so when you think about the tight competitive market, the need for transparency, and by getting that transparency, you're building the trust that when you actually put the package together, the executive is trusting that they can actually make good on that. And it just leads to better results for the PE firm, the portfolio company. When we talk about talent as a weapon in building these industrial businesses, Jared, Heather, what do you think about that?
Well, talent's everything, right? I think I can't remember who said this quote, but strategy means nothing if you don't have the right people. And consistently, whenever I speak to any sponsor who's a client, you talk about a great exit they had, what was the difference maker there? Always one of the top two things is the people, particularly the CFO, or the CEO, and the team that they had. So you need people to execute the right way. You need people to keep the right people on board. So it's extremely important. And I think that's part of why we're so busy right now. I mean, we've seen just a lot of needs out there. And, luckily, a lot of the sponsors we work with, they understand that. And that's why they value partnering with us.
No, fantastic. Heather, what's your take on talent as a weapon in building portfolio companies?
Looking at the outcomes for the business, and that PE can be open-minded in what that leader might look like. It might come from someone who hasn't had a rep with private equity before, or someone that's even in an adjacent market, and matching the outcome to what they're looking for specifically for that portfolio.
No, outstanding. Well, everybody is talking about AI today. How is AI impacting industrial businesses?
Yeah. Depends on the business, not as much as I'd say in, the software and some other industries, but we are seeing it come up more and more. As I mentioned before, when you've got different manufacturing operations looking at things like efficiency, visibility into production, how to integrate AI into all their different visibility tools and dashboards. Also things, on the aftermarket side with preventative maintenance and just predictive analytics, you can, use these different tools to be able to understand when different clients are going to need certain things when it comes to a maintenance aspect, and, just be able to forecast better as far as what your business is going to do, and then also how you can capture more business. So it's interesting. I mean, even in, what I would describe as old school, manufacturing businesses that we work with, we're starting to get the question more and more, hey, is this candidate, what have they been doing as far as thinking about AI with their team? And so it's something that we're finding ourselves screening for a lot more, where it wasn't really the case 5 years ago.
No, outstanding. Well, and I think you really hit on it. I mean, look, we've developed a model at Bespoke Partners around AI, where there are two ways companies are using AI. One is to disrupt their business or industry, and the other is to make their business more efficient, more profitable, gain revenue. And I think in the industrial sector, by and large right now, it's the latter, which is how do I make my business more effective, more efficient? And so when you think about this and into the future, and one of the things that we tend to be is on the cutting edge of where talent is going, and you're placing that CFO, the COO, or the CEO, how are you thinking about those leaders and their adeptness to adopt AI to make the business more efficient? Because that's got to be part of value creation in the next 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, always you want to look for somebody who has done something like this before, but in the world now of AI, a lot of these things are unprecedented. So, you really want to look for leaders who know how to push the envelope and know how to be comfortable with driving change when, things might be a little more obtuse. There's a particular CEO search I'm working on right now. One of our scorecard categories is, can you, be innovative and move fast with imperfect data? So, it's the right type of leader who can come in and say, there's not a perfect map for where this is going, but we know we need to drive change here, and we're going to move fast and do this. So, it's looking for the right person first and foremost, but, nowadays, as more and more companies are starting to, integrate AI and do more with technology, you just got to look for executives that are at the forefront of that.
Heather, what makes for the winning industrial leader today?
Yeah, I think, and to piggyback off the AI aspect, the industrial Internet of Things has been pushed for, a decade or more now. So, embedding sensors and pulling data from manufacturing has been something that has been rolled out and now becoming more of that. It's a mandate, not a nice to have in the manufacturing space. So finding leaders who've been there and done that is, what I think is going to bring a private equity operation focused business to that next level.
No, fantastic. Well, just a parting question for you each. If you're speaking to one of our most important channel partners and you're looking at a new portfolio company, what advice would you have to them as they build the modern leadership team?
That's a good one. Well, you got to have the right team first and foremost. And, what does the right team look like? I mean, it's things that we've discussed. I mean, do you have a leader who can come in and bring people along with them? I mean, you have to have the right strategy. You have to have someone who knows how to execute, but you also need to have someone who can build alignment, who can bring teams along, communicate effectively, both internally and externally. My mind goes a lot to CEOs as a platform around someone. It's like a leader that can really be make or break. So that'd be my advice.
How about you, Heather?
Yeah, I go back to, again, of hire what the business need is, be more open-minded of bringing in leaders that haven't had the PE rep under their belt yet, but have the right outcome experience across their career. Especially as holds go longer and longer, we're running out of PE experience, folks. So we're going to need to continue to bring in, people that this is their first turn in private equity.
No, fantastic. Well, Jared, Heather, truly appreciate you joining the show. Ecstatic about the progress we're making in Industra and really impacting our channel partners, portfolio companies. I hope you both have an amazing day and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.